Hi, I'd like to welcome you to week 7 of the St. Aidans Institute course on Anglican Theology. So now, as we did last week, this week we're going to look at some more Anglican writers and great Anglican divines and who they were and why their writings are so significant for us today. I would like to just touch on one other thing that was in the introduction of the book that when I first read really left an impact on me and might be worth chewing on as you work on your readings for this week. In it, Schmidt talked about how evangelical Protestants really, in essence, are a Good Friday people. You'll hear language of, being cleansed in the blood of Christ and going to the foot of the cross. You'll hear a lot of imagery related to Good Friday as being foundational and central to the way they approach all the rest of their theological structures. He also reports the Orthodox, or describes the Orthodox as being an Easter people. Orthodox theology is far more mystical than Western theology, and the idea of rising from the dead, the implications of life after death, the implications of there being an eternal heaven, really become foundational to the Orthodox and drive a lot of what then comes after that. So they won't talk so much about the atonement, they'll talk more about the resurrection and the eternal life that Christ offers because of the atonement, but they'll focus on life rather than the death of Christ. And this is where this gets interesting. Oh, and he'll also describe Pentecostals as being a Pentecost people, obviously, where the coming of the Spirit on Pentecost becomes the absolute central driving force for them, to the point where there are problems in some Pentecostal churches where they feel that if you do not have the gift of tongues, then you are not really a full Christian. So the events as recorded in Acts 2 on Pentecost Sunday really drive Pentecostal churches more than Good Friday does and Easter does. Now this is where it gets interesting. In describing Anglicans, he says, we are a Christmas people. And I wasn't sure I liked that at first, and so I really wrestled with it. And the idea is that for Anglicans, it's the idea of the advent of God in our midst. The idea that God would come in human flesh to save us is something that's uniquely Anglican. It really manifests itself in the sacraments and in the participation in Eucharist every week. And as we are currently now in the season of Advent in preparations for Christmas, it's really worth wrestling with that. How does that make us unique, assuming it's correct? And you may disagree, but if you want to take that argument and run with it, the idea that for us that we're waiting for the coming of God, we're waiting for God to become a human being. We marvel at God becoming a human being, and obviously you can't think about the first Advent without recognizing that we live in the second Advent, where we're waiting for the return of Christ and for the advent of the second coming. And how does that all fit together, and how does that all manifest itself? So this is some really interesting stuff and worth chewing on as you do your readings this week. It may play out in the writers you choose to talk about, it may not, but certainly as an Anglican, something worth thinking through. All right, I hope you have a great week. God bless you and Merry Christmas.